you're here to find some underappreciated shows or maybe hear me praise a few old favorites, you've come to the right place. This is Restless in Peace, and today we're spotlighting I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. I'm Fennec, and I've been an anime fan for almost a decade and I've watched hundreds of shows. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with friends. If you haven't seen I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, spoilers ahead. I didn't think that I Want to Eat Your Pancreas would instantly become my all-time favorite romance movie before I watched it, especially because I already started watching it some time ago and stopped. I think I stopped around the 20-minute mark. Back then, I kind of stopped because it just didn't click with me. I think it's been a pretty long time since then, so I'm not 100% sure. But it definitely clicked this time around, at least. Maybe I just had to, grow up a little first. I Want to Eat Your Pancreas came out a little over 2 years ago, and I first gave it a shot a few months later, so let's say the first time I tried watching it was about a year and a half ago. That's a long time, and I grew up a lot this past year and a half, probably more so than in any other period in my entire life. What first caught my eye about this movie was its name, I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. Especially when you combine that with the romance genre and the movie's poster that shows the two leads leaning on each other back to back, surrounded by cherry blossom trees. Some people might not like to admit it, but every book is in fact judged by its cover. A little under the cover, the movie itself is about a boy named Haruki Shiga and a girl named Sakura Yamauchi. One day, Haruki has to go to the hospital in order to remove a couple of stitches. While there, he found a book on the waiting room floor titled Living with Dying, which turns out to be Sakura's diary. And now that he's seen it, Haruki is the only one outside of Sakura's family who knows about her illness. As you might have guessed, it involves her pancreas. Incidentally, Haruki and Sakura are in the same class. And because he's the only one who knows her secret, Sakura and Haruki start spending a lot more time together. Which brings us to today's topic. Was it fair of her to get so close to someone when she knew how close she was to dying? It's a complicated question, and my first reaction was no. It's unfair towards Haruki. But like I said, it's a complicated question, and those don't tend to have such a straightforward answer. But since it was my initial reaction, let's start with why Sakura is being unfair and probably selfish. My first point is probably very obvious. She's setting him up for guaranteed pain, and quite a lot of it. It's also not like she didn't know they'd grow at least somewhat close. After all, she's the one that asked him to be her friend right up until she dies. She's the one that pushed him to spend as much time with her as possible. But it's also true that although some guilt-tripping was involved, no one forced his hand, and at some point he even started admitting he was having fun and even looking forward to their get-togethers. And this is exactly where I need to draw a kind of line in regards to answering my original question of is it fair? I can't take into account how the fact that Sakura changed Haruki's life forever and for the better, because I don't think that such a relatively positive outcome can be expected from similar situations. After all, not everyone's life is a romance movie that calls for a happy ending. But then we run into, what should I call it? Let's call it an idea. If the happy ending is what makes this feel better, feel fair, then how can we make a happier ending for similar cases? What's the difference here? The answer is step one, honesty. And when I say step one, I mean it. The very first thing Sakura tells Haruki is that she's sick and going to die. And it's because of that Haruki had as much time as he could have possibly had to process what was going to happen. as he got to know her better before she eventually died. The final nail in the coffin that, in my opinion, does make this fair, of course considering you're upfront about your illness, is that you got so hurt by that person passing then that it's probably fair to say that you cared a lot about them. They meant a lot to you. And I'd say that those feelings and memories are probably worth the pain, but ultimately that's probably for you to decide. Finally, I do recommend you watch I Want to Eat Your Pancreas if you haven't, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with friends. You know, this was actually kind of a strange episode to record, mostly because I actually had to re-record it. I recorded the entire episode once, and then I figured out that I was actually using the wrong microphone. I was using my laptop's microphone instead of my usual one, so the quality was horrible, and I just had to redo everything. So, yeah.